Privatization. Over 90 million Nigerians lack electricity. Tinubu. The president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has lamented that over 90 million Nigerians lack access to electricity 1 decade after the country's power sector was privatized. This was even as the Minister of Power, Adelabu, threatened to revoke licenses of companies whose performances so far have been below par. Speaking at the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry (NESI) Market Participants and Stakeholders Roundtable in Abuja, Tinubu, who was represented by the Special Advisor on Power and Infrastructure, Sadiq Wanka, lamented that the national grid only serves about 15% of the country's demand. This has left households and factories to rely on expensive self-generation, which supplies a staggering 40% of the country's demand. What is worse is that the total amount of electricity that can be wheeled through the national grid has remained relatively flat in the last 10 years. The grid capacity has increased from just over 3,000 megawatts to typically just over 4,000 megawatts today, as against our 40,000 megawatts target by 2020 that the federal government had set pre-privatization. He said, according to the president, only around 45% of NESI customers are metered today, with wide variations across discos. The scale of investment needed to meter current and new customers and replace obsolete meters is not trivial. The government is committed to supporting the metering drive through the World Bank DISREP program, which should add at least 1.25 million meters, while activating the Meter Acquisition Fund to procure another 4 million meters. But we must also realize that long-term sustainable metering should be within the remit of discos and their partners. We need to have a clear plan to rebase tariffs so we recognize the real costs and loss levels of the entire value chain, and we allow for adequate cost recovery for investments. We need to be clear on what shortfalls are and how we will finance them. And there must be a clear path to extinguishing historic sector debts to various value chain stakeholders. A reconciliation exercise in this regard is already underway, he noted. Irked by the abysmal performance of the sector, Minister of Power Adelabu threatened to revoke the licenses of companies whose performances fall below standards, saying that he would rather move for commercialization than privatization. He said that the government will do performance assessment of all the distribution companies, that is the discos, and all the generation companies, which the gencos, and any of them that fails the straight test will be left behind. The assessment will be based on whether they have technical capacities, financial capabilities, and how much investment they have made, how much improvement they have made to the infrastructure, which of the aggregate technical and commercial AT&C losses they have reduced. And I made mention that 10 years down the line, the licenses are expiring and it's time for renewal. Renewal is not automatic. Any of the privatized companies that has not lived up to expectation will not have its license renewed. We have to know whether you have complied with the terms and conditions of the license you have been given. We look at the technical capacities of the gencos and the discos. We will look at the financial capabilities of the discos. How much investment have you made since you got the license? How much improvement have you made to the infrastructure? Which of the AT&C losses have you reduced based on the agreement when you were given these licenses? These are the very serious conversations we need to have with the private sector operators at the distribution and the generating company level, he emphasized. The minister regretted that the state of things in the electricity supply industry is quite intolerable and the activities of the privatization have not been met. To this extent, he canvassed for commercialization instead of privatization.